The purpose of Dreamweaver isn't just building web pages, it's building web sites. Site management is so tied into everything that Dreamweaver does that defining a site should be your first task when working on a new project, or when working on an existing site for the first time in Dreamweaver. Without defining a site, Dreamweaver can't resolve links, check related files, nor help you manage your assets. Fortunately, defining a site in Dreamweaver is quick and painless. A website is merely a collection of files and folders, logically organized based on site structure. The parent folder is referred to as the root folder and is all that's really necessary to define a site in Dreamweaver. Now you can see I don't have a site defined here. If I go over to my Files panel, I can see the desktop, and when I click the pull-down menu, there are no sites defined. There are so many different places in Dreamweaver where you can define sites. Just a few of them, for example, here at the Files panel, I could choose Manage Sites. I could go to my Welcome screen and choose a new Dreamweaver site from here. I could do it from the menu, or right up here on the application bar, I can choose Site, New Site. So really, any of those locations is fine. I'm just going to go ahead and choose Site, New Site. Now, when defining a site, you choose from the Basic or the Advanced tab. Both will give you exactly the same defined site, although the Advanced tab has access to some settings that the Basic tab does not. The Basic tab is more of a wizard-based way of defining a site, primarily set up as a question and answer session resulting in a finished site. The Advanced tab merely makes settings available in a series of categories without lengthy discussions as to what they are. In this example, we'll use the Advanced tab to access these categories quickly, but don't be intimidated by the term Advanced. It's the exact same information available in the Basic tab with a few extra items that you can access. So I'm going to click on the Advanced tab. And the first thing that it wants to know from me is, what do I want to name this site? Well, since it's for the Check magazine, I'm just going to go ahead and name it Check Mag. Now that site name can be anything you want it to be. It doesn't have to be anything specific. It doesn't have to conform to any naming convention standards. If you're working on a team, you might want to make sure everybody's using the exact same name. But other than that, it can be anything that's descriptive for you. For the local root folder, I'm just going to click the Browse icon, and I'm going to browse out to my desktop and find the folder that I've placed out there for this specific purpose. Now, on the Mac, you'd select the folder and select Choose. And on the PC, you're going to open it up, and then you're going to choose Select. So a slight difference there, but that's really it. Now, that local root folder can be anywhere you need it to be. It might be local on your hard drive, or it might be out on a shared server somewhere. It's just where your development environment is going to be. Now, we're going to go ahead and do a default images folder, but really anything after this point is optional. That is all that you need to do to form a site in Dreamweaver for the first time. I'm going to click on Browse for default images folder, and notice that we're starting to reap the benefits of telling it where the root folder is. It takes me directly in the root directory, and I can open up the images directory and choose Select. Now, if Dreamweaver has to create any images, it knows where to put them. From this point on, all this other stuff is optional. The HTTP address, it'll help me resolve absolute links, but I don't have one, so I'm not going to put one. I do want to enable caching, and that way it will cache up my files and they'll be available in the assets panel for me to use and things like that. Now, there are certainly more categories we can fill out, but when we're starting on a site, the local information is all that you really need. And as we've seen, some of that is optional. Before we click OK and close the site definition window, let's examine some of our other categories and the information you need to utilize them. Now, first thing, I'm going to click on the remote info. And here, if we were given some FTP access information from our IT department or a web hosting company, I could grab the pull down menu here, choose FTP, and I could go ahead and enter that in. I could enter my login password, test it, and make sure my connection was going to be okay. Same thing for if I was working over a local network. If my live web server was right down the hall from me and I was connected to it, I could just go ahead and tell it where all this was going to be uploaded. So when we're finished, the remote info is going to tell Dreamweaver where to place the finished site. If you're using server-side technology like Cold Fusion or ASP or .NET or PHP, using the testing server category, you'd let Dreamweaver know where that testing server was going to be so that it could preview your pages accurately within the browser. We also have something new in Dreamweaver CS4. We have a version control category, and this ties into Subversion. So for those of you that are out there currently using Subversion, Dreamweaver now actually ties into that and can help manage your version control directly from within Dreamweaver. So that's a really nice new feature. Now, the remaining categories are for the most part preferences of how you want Dreamweaver to manage sites and handle collaborative tools. For example, deciding which files are not going to upload when you upload the whole site, how your templates are going to be managed, and where your Spry assets are going to go. And that's really all there is to it. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK. Our site's defined, and now in my Files panel, I have access to all the files and folders. If I go over to my Assets panel, I can browse through my image assets, my Flash assets. So that caching that it did right there at the beginning makes all this stuff available to me. Now, if I change my mind or if I get additional information later on, it's really easy to edit my site. I can go right back up to the application bar, for example, and choose Manage Sites. It's going to list any sites that I've defined. I can highlight this and I can choose Edit. And that brings that information right back up again. I could choose to select and now put in remote info. I could go ahead and do a testing server if I was going to make this PHP or Cold Fusion driven, anything like that. I could change the image directory. Any change you want to make to your site, you could go ahead and do. You could go ahead and click OK, click Done. And if I had made a significant change here, it would recache the site. So that's all there is to it. Defining a site in Dreamweaver is an easy but necessary step required for the start of any new project. As you've seen, you can give Dreamweaver all the site information at the very beginning of the project, or you can wait and define things like remote information at a later date if you don't have those settings when starting out. Either way, Dreamweaver's flexibility in defining and editing sites makes it simple.